No one ever told you that childhood could end without noise. There was no dramatic moment, no screaming, no obvious tragedy. It just faded. You learned very early that being quiet was safer than being honest, that needing less meant surviving more, that emotions were something you handled alone. So you adapted. You became mature for your age. People praised your calm. They admired your independence. But what they didn't see was how often you swallowed your words, how many questions you never asked, how many feelings you buried before they ever became real. As a child, you didn't know you were being shaped. You just knew that expressing yourself didn't feel welcome. So you watched instead of speaking, observed instead of participating, listened instead of asking, and slowly, you disappeared inside yourself. Years later, you grew up. From the outside, everything looks fine. You function, you work, you smile when required. But something feels missing. You feel disconnected from people, from joy, from yourself. You struggle to explain it because nothing bad enough ever happened. And that's the most confusing part. You weren't abused. You weren't abandoned. You were just unseen. Psychology has a name for this, but you didn't need the word to feel the effect. When a child grows up without emotional safety, they don't learn who they are. They learn who they're allowed to be. So you became agreeable, helpful, low maintenance. You learned to read rooms, to sense moods, to avoid being a burden. But in doing so, you never learned how to exist freely. Now as an adult, you feel lost, but not loudly lost, quietly lost. You question your identity, your purpose, your worth. You ask yourself things like, why do I feel empty even when life is stable? Why do I feel guilty for resting? Why do I feel uncomfortable being seen? And the hardest question of all, who am I, really? The truth is, you were never taught to answer that. Your nervous system learned survival, not self-expression. Your mind learned adaptation, not authenticity. You confuse peace with numbness. You confuse independence with isolation. You confuse strength with silence. This is why praise doesn't reach you, why relationships feel exhausting, why you feel like you're performing instead of living. Because deep down, you don't feel safe being fully known. Not because you're broken, but because you were conditioned. Conditioned to stay small, conditioned to stay quiet, conditioned to stay acceptable. And now you're carrying patterns that no longer serve you. You overthink conversations. You replay moments. You assume you said too much or not enough. You crave connection, yet pull away from it. You want to be understood, yet hide the parts that need understanding. This internal conflict creates constant tension, a quiet war between who you are and who you learn to be. Psychology tells us that identity is not something we find. It's something we were allowed to explore, and you weren't. So now you feel behind. Like everyone else got a manual you never received. But here's what most people don't tell you. You are not late. You are not weak. You are not empty. You are unintroduced to yourself. The part of you that went quiet didn't disappear. It learned to wait. Healing doesn't begin by forcing confidence. It begins by creating safety internally, by allowing feelings without judgment, by letting curiosity replace self-criticism, by understanding that silence was a response, not a flaw. You don't need to become someone new. You need to meet who you already are without fear. And that takes time, gentle attention, patience. Not because healing is slow, but because trust takes time to rebuild. If this feels personal, it's because it is. Not just for you, but for millions who grew up quietly. And the moment you realize this wasn't your fault is the moment your life actually begins.